My dear brothers and sisters, we have the grace today to celebrate this day with Mary on the first Saturday in May, Our Lady's Month. And Our Lady stands at the beginning of spring during the celebration of Easter as the morning star, the dawn of new life, who directs our attention toward the east, towards the light, towards the dawn, towards the new life of grace, and towards eternity. And it's Our Lady's personal presence in the church and in our lives that is constantly calling us and encouraging us to approach God's mercy and His grace. St. Maximilian Kolbe, in the early part of the very tumultuous and tragic 20th century, believed that all the prophecies of the modern age, beginning with Rudebach, including Lourdes, was directing our attention towards this truth that the renewal of the church and peace in the world, the promise of new life and hope, was anchored in Our Lady's Immaculate Heart, because she is the one that God has chosen to help us understand what it means to be a follower of Christ, what it means to be holy. And she is the one, because she is Mother, to help us do precisely that. When he reflected upon the message of Our Lady to Saint Bernadette at Lourdes, and he thought about Our Lady's self-revelation there, where after many, many, many times that Bernadette had asked her what her name was, and Our Lady had many, many times just not answered. Finally, through Saint Bernadette's persistence and her hopefulness, Our Lady looked up to heaven and then opened her arms and looked down at Bernadette and said, "I am the Immaculate Conception." St. Maximilian Kolbe reflected on these words and said, she didn't say, "I'm immaculately conceived," or "I have the grace of the Immaculate Conception." No, she identified herself as the Immaculate Conception. And he has many wonderful and beautiful thoughts about what Our Lady actually meant by this, but to put it in few words, Our Lady is the one that God has chosen to be the source of holiness for all of us. And it's really her identity. She is the universal and cosmic woman. She is the universal mother, the mother of God and the mother of all men. She is the one that God has chosen to bestow all his gifts. She is full of grace, and so full of grace that her grace becomes our grace. That the grace given to her becomes the presence of Jesus in her womb. And she delivers over that grace to each and every one of us, first of all by consenting to be the mother of Jesus, and then by delivering him up, as his mother to the great sacrifice that was the will of his Father, and then by becoming the mother of the church and the mother of each and every one who calls themselves a follower of Christ. And so she stands at the center of the church. And this has been the teaching, of the church and the Holy Fathers, particularly during these very difficult times, since the time really before St. Maximilian Kolbe, but in particular with John Paul II and, of course, Pope Benedict. Our attention is directed to the person of Our Lady to help us understand what it means to be a follower of Christ, what it means to be someone who loves him and is willing to give him everything. And so, when we talk about this great gift of Our Lady in the church, we're talking about someone who is, yes, a model of the church and of each and every one who follows Jesus Christ. We learn from her what it means to be holy. And this is, in a practical way, exemplified for us in the praying of the Rosary. It's a very simple way of looking to Our Lady's virtues and seeing Jesus as she saw him, and of remembering the things that are most important about the teaching of the church and the teaching of Jesus, and seeing before our eyes exemplified in a wonderful way a follower of Jesus. But it's more than that. When the church teaches that Our Lady is a model of the church, or the model of the church, or the archetype of the church, the exemplar of the church, it's not like, something off in the distance, the way, a painter will observe a subject or a landscape and paint it, and that whatever he's looking at is the model or the exemplar for what he's trying to create. But it's sort of an indirect, static, and distant type of influence. That's not what we mean when we say that Our Lady is model and model of the church and exemplar of the church, that she is personally present to the church. What the church is saying when it talks about Our Lady in this way is saying that she is an active and living ideal. This would be the words of St. Maximilian Kolbe, and this is what he understood from Our Lady's self-revelation at Lourdes, is that she's personally present in the church. She is personally present in the life of each and every individual follower of the Lord, and in a way that only a mother can do, and uniquely in the way that only the Mother of God can do. She impresses her heart and mind onto the heart and mind of each and every individual follower of Christ, and in particular on those who open themselves up to her influence. And this is Our Lady's mediation. Pope Benedict doesn't talk a lot about the mediation of Our Lady, but he does talk a lot about her personal presence in the church, and that the church can't be reduced to a thing, but only to the person of Christ. And it's that Our Lady in the church who, more than anything else, prevents us from ever misunderstanding what it means to be a follower of Jesus, ever misunderstanding what it means to be in the church. And he says that it's her personal presence that makes her the one who destroys all heresies. Our Lady prevents us from going astray because she is alive and active in the church and for each of its members. So when we pray the Rosary, then, as an example I'm giving, it's not just looking at the mysteries. It's not just seeing Our Lady as an example. It's that we're actually clinging to her, even physically through the use of the beads, but spiritually through the prayer, our invocation of Our Lady's presence, and our meditation on the mysteries is an active effort to reach out to her, to find her presence, and to live in her presence, and to have her impress her thoughts, her word, her dispositions, her desires on us, And this is an interaction like it is between any two people, that it's a give and take. But we're the ones that have the problem, not Our Lady. When human relationships, they're difficult because both people have a problem that they're trying to work out, and it's difficult. People rub up against each other, and it creates a lot of problems. But in this relationship, it's only, the problem is one-sided. We're the problem, and we're the one that needs to be fixed. So we have to open ourselves up. We have to desire to come to know Our Lady Saint Maximilian, his desire in promoting the cause of Our Lady or consecration to Our Lady, had this desire that she might be known and loved. Because the more that she's known and loved, the more that we come to be true followers of Jesus, become to know her and love her and understand what it means to be a member of Christ and learn how to do it the right way and learn how to overcome our sinfulness, our stubbornness, our pride, our impurity, or whatever it might be. We learn through her what it means to be virtuous. Again, not just because we look to her, but because more than that, she's in us and living through us. And so during May, when we, Day with Mary is like May every day, because everything you would want to do in May, you do it every day with Mary. So, but in a particular way, we do all these things, these external things, because it's meant to be a sign of what's going on inside. And because we are both body and soul, we're not angels, we have to do both. Hopefully the external things that we do not only reflect what's inside, but help us to generate the dispositions that we need to grow in our faith. And likewise, because we have these convictions and this internal life in us, it finds its expression quite naturally in the things that we do. So we want to give flowers to Our Lady. We want to crown her with flowers. But hopefully this means something more than simply an external devotion. This is why St. Louis de Montfort wrote True Devotion to Mary, because he felt it was necessary to distinguish true devotion from false devotion. Lip service from the genuine article, which is a life of conversion. And an interior life of prayer, which is directed ultimately to the glory of God. And in these times in which we live, which are so difficult and godless in so many different ways, we're up against forces that are bigger than us. Not only because the problems are global and are rooted in the powers of this world, but also because more importantly, and more frighteningly, because they are cosmic and rooted in the powers of the underworld. And the only solution to those St. Maximilian again would say, to achieve a supernatural goal, we need a supernatural means. To overcome spiritual powers, we need a more powerful spiritual source. And that remains the woman clothed with the sun, who is in eternal conflict with the ancient serpent, and who is ultimately victorious. And so as we reflect upon the mystery of Our Lady's person, we can also think about something that has been very important to the Church during these difficult times that I've been talking about, and in particular, as it's been emphasized, in the last 50 years by the papal magisterium, and probably most particularly in the teaching of John Paul II, and that is, the dignity of the human person. The modern world talks a lot about the dignity of the human person. There's a group in the United States, in fact, I think they're probably worldwide by now, of, say, active homosexuals who promote themselves as being Catholics, and it's known as dignity. And so the great lie is that the dignity of the human person is rooted in doing what you want, and demanding the right to do what you want, and then fighting for it. And that this is what dignity consists in. So we've been, and the feminist lie about abortion and all this stuff is the selling of vice of what offends God, what is godless and offensive to God, under the title of dignity. When in fact it's just the opposite. When the church talks about the dignity of the human person, it's talking very simply and practically about, you can't kill babies, that sodomy is not a virtue, it's a vice, that marriage is sacred, it's godly, and that it comes to us from God and that we must respect it, that men cannot be turned into slaves of economic systems or political systems, that people's faith is fundamental to their existence as they've been created by God, and that their right to follow the free conviction and the pursuit of truth is something that belongs to them from their creation by the Savior. The church has been a great advocate and defender of human dignity because it's ultimately the great advocate and defender of the truth and ultimately of the worship of God. So the world wants to place a wedge between the rights of God and the rights of man and put the rights of man before those of God. The church defends human dignity precisely because the rights of God come first. And again, the person of Our Lady, the person of Christ, this idea that the church ultimately is subject to the Lord and to his divine providence, and that we find out what it means to be a follower of Jesus by coming closer to his mother. These are all guarantees ultimately of our being on the road of truth, and which means also that we're on the road of charity, and ultimately that we're on the road to heaven. And so in the face of all these forces, which are ultimately reduced not to things, the church and the world are not machines that have been pre-programmed by some force outside of nature, and they're on their inevitable way. Everything is ultimately reducible to the person. Either it's been created by God, or it's been subverted by the evil one. And those are the real forces at work in the world. Those are the real forces at work. And there is only one solution and one solution only, and that is the person of Jesus Christ. And in this modern time, in these very difficult times, God has willed to establish in the world devotion to the Immaculate Heart of Mary. Because ultimately, he has revealed the truth about our salvation and about the practical things that we need to do in the world today through her. There is one problem and there's one answer, and that is, the cosmic battle between good and evil that is ongoing until the end of the world, and the answer to the problem is devotion to the Immaculate Heart of Mary. We need Our Lady to help us find our way out of the mess that we're in. And ultimately, it is her presence in people's lives that will bring about conversion. In the end, it has to be conversion. And in the end, all we can do is follow the Lord, because nobody can do it. I can't do it for you, you can't do it for me, and we can scream and jump up and down all we want about how bad the world is, but people have to change themselves. People have to make the right choices, and that is grace. That is the power of God. That we're talking about the working of miracles in people's lives. That's what is necessary, and that's why there's only one way out of the problem, and only one answer, the one that God has given us, and the one that God has given us in these times, which is devotion to the Immaculate Heart of Mary. And so we turn to Our Lady, who is our Queen and Mother, who is Queen of May, and we offer to her our prayers and our devotion. We offer to her the flowers of our honor, but more importantly, we offer her the Holy Rosary. and what it represents in the end, which is a life lived in union with her, who is our mother and queen.